Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 5. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Vishnupada Paramahamsa Paribrajakacarya Stotara Sata Shri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prince Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Mathura Dham Ki Jai Navadip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 5. Guru Nahatva hi mahanubhavan shreyo bhuktum vaikashyam api aloke hadvarta kamamstu guru nihaiva punjya bhogan rudira pradigdan Guru Mahatva hi mahanubhavam Shreyo Bhuktum Vaikshyam Api Aloke Hadvarta Kamamstu Guru Nihava Bunja Bhogan Rudira Pradigdan Guru Mahatva hi mahanubhavan Shreyo Bhuktum Bhaiksyam Api Aloke Hatvarta kamam tu gurun ihaiva bunja bogan rudira pradigdan. Gurun, the superiors. Ahatva, by killing. He certainly. Mahanubhavan, great souls. Shreya, it is better. Bhoktum, to enjoy life. Bhaikshan, begging. Api, even. Hiha, in this life. Loke, in this world. Hatva, killing. Artha, gain. Kaman, so desiring. To, but. Gurun, superiors. Iha, in this world. Eva, certainly. Bhunja, has to enjoy. Bhogan, enjoyable things. Rudhira, blood. Pradigdan, tainted with. Translation and purport for Srila Prabhupada. It is better to live in this world by begging than to live at the cost of the lives of great souls who are my teachers. Even though they are avaricious, they are nonetheless superiors. If they are killed, our spoils will be tainted with blood. Purport. According to scriptural codes, a teacher who engages in an abominable action and has lost his sense of discrimination is fit to be abandoned. Bhishma and Drona were obliged to take the shelter of Duryodhana because of his financial assistance, although they should not have accepted such a position simply on financial consideration. Under the circumstances, they have lost the respectability of teachers, but Arjuna thinks that nonetheless they remain his superiors, and therefore to enjoy material profits after killing them would mean to enjoy the spoils tainted with blood. Gurun hatvahi mahanubhavan shreyo bhoktum bhaikshyam apiyaloke hatvarta kamamstu gurun ihava hunja bogan rudira pradigdan. So Arjuna is here replying to Krishna, giving his reasons why he doesn't want to fight. Now, if you look at this verse and also the verse before, Arjuna is making a very proper and very moral argument, which we all should follow. No one can recommend you to kill your superiors, your teachers, your grandfather. That is unheard of, your family members. But there is one point to be noticed here, that even though Arjuna's arguments are morally just, even according to the Vedas, according to the religious principles, according to morality, there is one fault. And that is the main and the greatest fault, is that these arguments are being given to Krishna for Arjuna's pleasure, not for Krishna's pleasure. Arjuna is not thinking what is pleasing to Krishna. He is thinking what is pleasing to me, my grandfather, my teacher, my relatives, my family members. Whereas Krishna is inciting him to fight. So the proper reply for a devotee is, Maria Krishna, whatever you want, I will do. It doesn't matter what. And indeed, when Arjuna understands that Krishna not only is his friend, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anything that God advises is good, because God is by definition all good and all perfect. Om Purnam Adaha Purnam Idam. Krishna, God is Purna. The definition of God is that he is complete. Purnat Purnam Adachaye Purnameva Avashishyate. That even though you take everything away from God, even God manifests unlimited universes, unlimited living entities, unlimited energies, he remains Purnam. Jiva Goswami has commented that it is not possible to make advancement in devotional life and spiritual life unless we accept the inconceivable power of God. And this is Arjuna, when he understands that more important than the action is the reason for the action. If the reason for the action is to please Krishna, even morally the action may be objectionable, because the reason is to please Krishna, and because Krishna has advised it. You cannot concoct that, that I will do something to please Krishna, I will do something immoral and Krishna will be pleased. No, Krishna is ordering Arjuna to fight. Therefore, morality is following Krishna's order. Later on, during the actual battle of Kurukshetra, there were there were three main opponents to be defeated by the Pandavas. And the chief, the point man in the Pandavas' army was Arjuna. He was the main warrior. Of course, Yudhishthira was very powerful. Bhima could fight 10,000 elephants. But the power of Arjuna to shoot arrows, his knowledge of the mantras of warfare was unmatched. But he had three deadly enemies: Bhishma, Drona, and Karna. Bhishma, first of all, could not be killed unless he agreed to be killed. Drona was the martial arts teacher and guru of Arjuna. It is impossible for a disciple to defeat his guru. It is very rare. And Drona was an unmatched warrior. And the only way that he could be killed was by some underhand trick. So Krishna, he understood this very well. So he said to Yudhishthira that Dronacharya cannot be defeated. But he has one chink in his armor, one weakness is there, and that is his attachment to his son. Dronacharya's son was named Ashwatthama. He was also a great warrior. Now, if you, Yudhishthira, who is known as a person who's never told a lie, you're renowned for your truthfulness and sincerity, if you go to Drona and tell him that his son is dead, then Drona will become dejected and we will be able to kill him. So Yudhishthira at first refused. He says, no, how can I tell a lie? My whole life has been based on telling the truth. I have never told a lie. But actually, because Krishna wanted it, the telling of the lie was not immoral. And indeed, when Yudhishthira understood that this is what Krishna wants me to do, his devotion to Krishna, his love for Krishna, his intense desire as a devotee to please Krishna, this is a devotee's quality. A devotee's quality is that he wants to please Krishna. This desire of Yudhishthira was more important than his so-called morality. And indeed, he went to Drona and told him that your son Ashwatthama is dead. And when that happened, Dronacharya put down his weapons and he sat, closed his eyes, and at that moment, Draupadi's brother, forget his name, Drishtadumna. Drishtadumna was born along with Draupadi from a sacrificial fire performed by his father, Draupad, King Draupad, and his father specifically wanted a son to be able to kill Drona. They had an issue, they were enemies. So Drishtadumna took his chance when Dronacharya closed his eyes and put down the weapon, devastated by the news that his son was dead, because he believed Yudhishthira, because of Yudhishthira's incredible reputation for telling the truth. He never for a moment suspected that Yudhishthira was lying. So as he became dejected and put down his weapons and closed his eyes, Drishtadyumna beheaded him. And this is how Dronacharya was killed. The other person mentioned in this purport is Bhishma. Bhishma, not only was he invincible in battle, he was also the grandfather of Arjuna. He was not a regular person. The story of Bhishma is that he was one of the 8 Vasus. The 8 Vasus are very powerful demigods. And these demigods who live in the heavenly planets, one day they came to the ashram of Vashishta. Vashishta wasn't there, but they saw a beautiful cow, Nandini. She was there. Kamadhenu. She had the power of the spiritual cows from Vaikuntha, from Goloka, Surabhi. She could give you anything you wanted. So the wife of the chief Vasu, whose name was Diyu, she said, "My dear husband, I want that cow." And they said, "Well, we shouldn't take it. It doesn't belong to us. It belongs to a sage." But now she insisted. So they took the cow. When Vashishta came back to his ashram and saw that the cow was missing, he sat in meditation. And because he was a greatly powerful yogi who knew past, present, and future, he understood who had taken his cow. So he cursed the 8 Vasus to take birth in the material world on this planet. So the Vasus, when they heard the curse, they apologized and begged Vashishta to mitigate. And Vashishta said, "Very well." They made an arrangement that all of you will take birth from Mother Ganges. Mother Ganga will take birth as a queen on the planet Earth, and all of you will take birth as the son, and upon birth she will drown you in the waters of the Ganga. So you will only spend a few days on the material plane. But the one who actually took the cow, you, because you actually took the cow, you will have to spend your whole life on the material planet. And that was Bhishma, due. So Ganga, she appeared personified on the banks of a river, and the emperor of India at that time, Shantanu, Maharaj Shantanu, he saw her and they fell in love and they married. But she made a condition that I will marry you, but whatever I do, you may never ever oppose me. You may never criticize me. If you criticize and oppose me, I will leave you immediately. If you agree to this condition, then I will marry you. So he agreed. So they got married. They were very happy. And when the first child came, she took the child and took it to the Ganges and drowned him. Of course, Maharaj Shantanu was shocked, but he couldn't say anything because of this condition. He knew that if he criticized her, she would leave. And this happened 7 times, one after another. She drowned 7 of her children, who were actually the 7 Vasus. So as soon as they were drowned, they went back to their heavenly planets. When the 8th child was born, and she was about to also drown him, Maharaj Shantanu could not hold his tongue. And he criticized her. "Woman, what are you doing? 7 children you have drowned. You're driving me mad." And he began to criticize her, and she said, "Because you criticized me, now I will leave." And she disappeared. He was disconsolate, but for a long time, for years, he kept looking, searching for her. He could never find her. Then one day, she appeared before him with a young boy, and she said, "My dear King Shantanu, this is your son, the 8th boy." He was that time 16 years old. His name is Devavrata. I have brought him up in the heavenly planets. He's fully conversant with all weapons and with all the codes of the Kshatriya. So he was a very powerful warrior trained in the heavenly planets. No human being could even fight with him. So Shantanu became very happy to get such a wonderful son, and he was going to be the next king. But then again, fate intervened. Fate intervened in the sense that Shantanu wasn't free from sex desire. He wanted the association of a woman. And one day when he was walking on the forest, on the bank of the river Ganges, he saw this beautiful lady called Satyavati. Satyavati not only was very beautiful, she also smelled like a lotus flower. Her perfume expanded from her body for miles. She was so beautiful and so fragrant. And he immediately fell in love with her and wanted to marry her. So he went to her father, who was a fisherman, and he said, I want to marry your daughter. The father said, I will allow you to marry my daughter. I will give it to you in marriage, but her son must become king. So Shantanu became taken aback because he had his own son, Devavrata, from the heavenly planets, the son of Ganga. He was going to be the king. So he couldn't conclude the affair, so he went away and he became dejected over, when somebody in the material world, when we want something and we don't get it, we become dejected. We become like spoiled children. You've seen a spoiled child when he wants something and he doesn't get it and he creates a whole tantrum, and until he gets it, he cannot be pacified. So we are like that. This is the material world. Just imagine Krishna's job, he has to take care of all these crazy souls on the material planets who are simply hankering for more and more and more. But Krishna doesn't give more and more and more. Krishna will not give you something that by giving it will cause you to ask again and again for the same thing. Therefore, people don't worship Krishna, they worship Shiva. Shiva is so absorbed in meditation that when people ask him for something, he doesn't really become disturbed. He says, yeah, take it. He just get rid of them. Take whatever you want. But Vishnu is not like that. So anyhow, Devavrata noticed that his father, the king, he was moody, he was sad. So he asked the minister, he said, why is my father so sad? He's not jolly anymore. He's just got a big weight on his mind, I can see. So the minister told him the story. So Devavrata went to the fisherman and he said, listen, why don't you allow your daughter to marry my father? He says, I will renounce my claim to the king. Her son can be the next king. So the fisherman, he was very smart, very cunning, and he said, yes, he says, I can believe that you will renounce the throne. What about your son? Your son will claim the throne. So Bhishma said, all right, I will make a vow in front of you that I will never marry. I will remain brahmachari. When he made this vow, there was a huge sound from the sky, and a light came, and a voice from the sky said, Bhishma. Bhishma means terrible, something incredibly terrible. Bhishma. This is how difficult it is to be a brahmachari, lifelong, Naistik brahmachari, to give up the association of women. Actually, to become a pure devotee of Krishna, one has to give up all material desires, and the main material desire is the association of man and woman. This is the great knot that binds us together. So one who can make that vow and keep it, he gets the title Bhishma. So from that day, Devavrata became known as Bhishma. And this is how, this is part of the story of the Mahabharata. Now, so Dronacharya and Bhishma were very, very powerful warriors. And the whole idea of the Mahabharata war, from Krishna's point of view, because Krishna engineered that war. Krishna came on this planet for two reasons. Paritranaya sadhunam, to protect the devotees, vinashaya cha duskritam, and to kill the demons. Dharma samstapanarthaya, according and to establish the process of religion, sambhavami yuga yuga. Krishna says, I appear millennium after millennium, every day of Brahma, Krishna comes, and he has his three duties of protecting the devotees, killing the demons, and establishing the principles of religion. The problem during Krishna's presence was that the emperor of India, the emperor of the world, because at that time India was spread in all directions. Everybody paid tribute to the king of Hastinapura. But the king of Hastinapura, Dhritarashtra, he was blind. He was not only blind physically, he was also blind emotionally and morally, because he favored his own son at the expense of the sons of his brother, the Pandavas. And Dhritarashtra's eldest son, Duryodhana, who in fact became the king because he was his father's favorite, and he took control of the treasury, he took control of the military, he took control of the palace, but he was not a devotee. He was actually against Krishna. He didn't accept Krishna as the Supreme Lord. He thought Krishna was just a normal person, just a powerful king. Whereas the Pandavas, they were all pure devotees, and Krishna wanted the Pandava. Krishna wants his own devotee to be in charge of the material world. The material world belongs to Krishna. It is part of his plan to uplift the living entities who are in ignorance of their relationship with him, and to re-establish that relationship. They require guidance, and that guidance is given by the king or the executive head. So it is very important for the king to be God conscious. But Duryodhana was anything but. Therefore, Krishna arranged the Mahabharata war, and Duryodhana was killed, his brothers were killed, his followers were killed, and Yudhishthira was placed on the throne. And Yudhishthira was a pure devotee of Krishna. That is the background of the Mahabharata war. So, in different yugas, there are different processes by which one can make spiritual advancement. Time, according to the Vedic version, is cyclical. There is no beginning and end. It's not that we began as monkeys and we'll end up as God. No. There is no beginning and end. Time keeps moving in a cycle. Just like from a tree, you get a fruit. From the fruit, you get the seed. From the seed, you get a tree. And like this, it perpetuates itself. So time also perpetuates itself. And at the beginning of time, of the cycle of time, it begins with what is called a Satya Yuga, or the age of enlightenment, also called Krita Yuga. So, Kritayam Dhyate Vishnu. The business of Satya Yuga is to meditate on Vishnu by the process of yoga. Because Satya Yuga, people live for 100,000 years, that Yuga lasts 1.8 million years. They lived 100,000 years. They were expert. They were able to meditate and go into yoga trance. And most of them became liberated, either went to the heavenly planets or went back to Vaikuntha. After the end of the Satya Yuga, the Treta Yuga began. Treta Yam Yajato Makai. In Treta Yuga, the process was sacrifices. So at that time, the kings and the executive heads and the governors, they would arrange sacrifices for the benefit of Vishnu and engage the population in these sacrifices. So it is said in the Vedas, the Vedic injunction is Yagya Vai Vishnu, that sacrifice means Vishnu. Sacrifice means that we understand we are dependent on a superior authority, we are dependent on God, and therefore we perform a sacrifice to let him know that we appreciate what he's doing for us. We appreciate that he's maintaining us. We appreciate that he's taking care of us. This is called sacrifice. So, Tretrayam Yajate Makai. To arrange a sacrifice, you required God-conscious administrators and kings. Then in Dwapara Yuga, which lasts 800,000 years, Dwaparam, I forget. Kritayam Dayate Vishnum, Tretayam Yajate Makai, Dwapara Paricharyayam, that in Dwapara Yuga, the process was to worship Lord Vishnu in the temple. Therefore, even now, if you look all over India, there are still temples which are thousands of years old. They get rebuilt every few hundred years by the kings and the princesses. And in these temples, Vishnu was worshipped, and people could go and re-establish a relationship with the Lord through the deity. And then in Kali Yuga, Kalo Tadhari Kirtana. These processes are no longer possible. There is no God-conscious administration. There is no saintly king. The whole world is simply run by rogues and thieves. There is no interest in any spirituality. But on the Kali Yuga that comes after the appearance of Krishna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes and he gives the mercy of the holy name of God. Tadhari Kirtana. That in Kali Yuga, the only process is by chanting the names of God. And by chanting the name of God, Mukta Sangha, we become free, Param Vrajet, and we can go back home, back to God. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada made it very clear that the platform, the basis, the foundation of spiritual advancement are chanting the names of God and following the principles of morality. No meat eating, no intoxication, no gambling, no illicit sex. If you can do that and chant, then you're guaranteed to go back home in this life. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. So we have our usual attendees. Atma Kamara Slinga, Jai Prabhu, Dandavats, Atma Vidya Prabhu, Hare Krishna, my pranams, and good evening to the assembled devotees. Anna Maria from Colombia, Hare Krishna, my obeisances of Gauri Srila Prabhupada. Krishna Premavati from Amsterdam, Hare Krishna. She also says, amazing that Bhishma living long was a curse, not a blessing. Yes, living in the material world is generally a curse. Glenn Avery, Noah was a biblical figure. He was the one who lived in a whale, was it not? Albert DeVos, Bhishma's amazing story, Naishtika Brahmachari, correct. Anna Maria carries on, I would like to know why Srila Prabhupada dedicated his Bhagavad Gita book to Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan. Thanks. Well, in our Sampradaya, in our disciplic successions, there are several commentaries on the Bhagavad Gita. One is by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, one by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and one by Baladev Vidyabhushan. So Prabhupada was particularly attracted to this commentary of the Bhagavad Gita by Baladev Vidyabhushan. You can get a copy of his commentary in English. It's been translated. Baladev Vidyabhushan was a disciple of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. When Vishwanath Chakravarti was very old, there arose a difference of opinion in Jaipur for the worship of Radha Govinda. Radha Govinda was originally Rupa Goswami's deity. It was installed in Vrindavan. The Radha Govinda temple is still there, the remnants of that temple. But during the reign of Aurangzeb, who had the propensity to break the temples, they took all the deities from Vrindavan and took them to Jaipur. Jaipur was the headquarters of the Rajputs. The Rajputs were very powerful Kshatriyas. They worked with the Mughal emperor, but they maintained their own separate kingdoms. So nobody could come into Rajasthan or Jaipur. So they took all the deities there. And with the deities, the Bengali pujaris who were appointed by Rupa Goswami went along with Radha Govinda to Jaipur. Radha Govinda became very famous. The king gave him a whole palace. He is the main attraction in Jaipur. And the local brahmanas, Mata Brahmanas, they became envious. They wanted part of it. They thought if we become pujaris, we can also get respect and money and things like this. So they looked for some fault and they said, well, they went to the king and said, these pujaris from Bengal, Gaudiya Vaishnavas, they don't have a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. Therefore, they are not qualified to worship Radha Govinda. So that was a discussion. And indeed, Gaudiya Vaishnavas didn't write a commentary. The Goswamis and the followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not write a commentary on Vedanta Sutra because the Srimad Bhagavatam is considered the natural commentary of the Vedanta Sutra. Indeed, the first verse of Bhagavatam, Jammadyasya yato anvayat. Jammasyasya yataha is the first sutra of the Vedanta, and it is included in the first line of the Srimad Bhagavatam. In fact, Srimad Bhagavatam is Vyasadev's commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, and no Acharya after Vyasadev saw the need to rewrite it. We don't rewrite what has been written by our previous Acharyas. But because of this controversy in Jaipur, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was very old, living in Vrindavan. He could not go, so he called Baladev Vidyabhushan, his young disciple, and he said, "You go to Jaipur and you sort out the situation." So Baladev went to Jaipur and he stayed nearby, and he went to see Lord Govinda, and in his dream, Lord Govinda said, "You sit down, I will dictate to you, and you can write the Vedanta Sutra commentary suitable to defeat the Smarta Brahmanas." So he sat and he wrote, and it is called the Govinda Bhasya, or the commentary on the Vedanta Sutra given by Govinda. When he wrote this, there was a meeting between the Brahmanas and the king, and he presented the Vedanta Sutra commentary, the Govinda Bhasya, and everybody was stunned, and the situation was resolved. And to this day, the pujaris in Jaipur, who take care of Radha Govinda, are coming from that line that came originally with the deity from Rupa Goswami. Good. Thank you very much. So we'll see you again next Wednesday. If you have any comments, please continue to send your comments. And of course, this lecture will also be copied onto the Amsterdam Temple Facebook page. Jai. Haribol. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.